this. Children of the World War II Home Front, written by Sylva Whitman. Out of the 5 books I chose, this is the only one that really didn't use artistic liberty telling its story. It told its story through the use of black and white photos and a line of text, and while it's not as visually stimulating of some of the other books I chose, this book has a nice pace and it isn't too wordy, likely making it quite readable to ages 10 and up. The book also offers some interesting sections, one in particular focused on recipe named Make Do Cake. This cake was a cake that you would make with supplies laying you a cupboard, thus rationing supplies. My only real negative is that it doesn't really focus on children as the title suggests, and it's not as engaging as my other books I chose. Second book, Welcome to Molly's World 1944, written by Katherine Gordon. Out of the books that I chose, this was definitely one of my favorites. This is because it combines the storytelling, artistic imagery, and educational engaging information. While the first book I reviewed, Children of the Home Front, focused on realism, Molly's World uses a neat mixture of fictitious storytelling with true facts and imagery. Molly is a fictitious girl created to mimic children of the era. Her story acts as the backbone of the book, carrying the topics along. The topics are quite diverse, with everything with blueprint, home, and toys of the era, parachuting dogs, woman hair surviving pilots. All of these topics are supplemented with beautiful, vibrant imagery, some of which is from the era, and some of it which is created solely for the book. It's this mixtures of styles and interface artwork that makes this quite an engaging book and will also make it easy to recommend to children of almost any age. My only complaint of this book, fairly minor. Since the book is called Molly's World, you would expect it to see her quite a bit inside the book, but she really is not mentioned that much. They really only use her as a jumping off point to mention all these other different topics, but I think it worked fairly well, so I don't really hold it against the book. Third book, Pearl Harbor, written by Stephen Krensky, illustrated by Larry Day. This story is fairly straightforward in its delivery and its content. The imagery is painted and some of the art is quite nice. But nothing really jumped out of it and grabbed my attention. Perhaps the book's inability to wow me was due to its being a book crafted for children who are just getting into reading books alone. Because of this, the vocabulary and structuring of the story is fairly simple and not as engaging to older audiences. But I wouldn't be discouraged while the book does lack the wow factor. To me, the book is serviceable, informative, and interesting, so I would definitely recommend to a child to explore. Fourth book, Sky High, The True Story of Maggie Gee, written by Marissa Moss and illustrated by Cara Angel. Like the story suggests, this is a true story in a form of a picture book. The first thing that jumps out is the art. The book is perhaps the most bright and colorful of the books that I reviewed. The art is captivating and energetic, and it does a wonderful job visually representing the story. The story itself deals with a young Chinese-American woman who is a flying enthusiast. She applies to become a Women's Air Force Service pilot to help service her country during World War II. She becomes one of the only two Chinese pilots. I really love her thoughtfulness of this book. It covers such issue of gender rights, equality, diversity, and potential racism. Being that she was an Asian American flying during World War II, this created some conflicts. I love this book and I would really recommend it to kids ages 6 to 11. My last book, Memories of Survival, written by Esther Krenitz and Bernice Steinhardt. This book is easily one of the most interesting and traumatic of all books I read. It's a true story told of one of the few survivals of a Jewish family in Poland. The trials she endures and her attempts to avoid Nazi persecution. I have to know how hard it is to express how amazing this book is without having to read it, because of the sheer amount of love and passion the survivor and her family put into creating this book. One example of the uniqueness of this book and its artwork, the artwork is comprised fully of embroidery. Imagine this elderly woman sewing together such a beautiful and encompassing imagery to retell her story of survival. The art and the story is so moving and touching that you cannot help to cry or at least feel intense emotions. I sat in awe, observing each and every picture of the work. I don't believe really young child would appreciate the power of this work due to its length, fairly heavy content, but regardless, I will still feel comfortable in sharing this to a 10-year-old and up. I feel these 5 books provide a good variety of different styles of content. While some stood out more than others, they were all entertaining in some degree and historical educational. I'm Eduardo Jimenez, and thanks for watching.